Have you ever found yourself wondering why the things that once consumed your every thought now seem to fade into insignificance? I remember a crisp autumn morning when I first realized that, after turning 70, many of the burdens and worries that had once dictated my life were no longer worth the weight they carried. My name is Harold, and after a long, winding journey filled with ups and downs, I arrived at an unexpected crossroads, a point where I had to decide whether to cling to old, unyielding expectations or to let go and embrace a lighter, happier life. For decades, I had devoted myself to achieving perfection in every aspect of life. I prided myself on being the rock for my family, a dedicated professional, and a community pillar. I worked tirelessly, always striving for that elusive balance between responsibility and success. I maintained strict routines, upheld traditions, and carried the weight of every mistake I ever made like an invisible scar. Yet, as I approached my 70s, I began to notice something profound. The things I once believed were the keys to happiness had become nothing more than chains, holding me back from experiencing genuine joy. It was during one quiet afternoon, as I sat in my favorite armchair by the window overlooking my garden, that I started to ask myself what truly matters now. I began to question the value of the incessant need for control, the long-held grudges, the constant pursuit of perfection, and even the superficial expectations of what society tells us should define our worth. In that reflective moment, I recalled a study I had read in a renowned journal on geriatric psychology, which revealed that letting go of unnecessary pressures and embracing a simpler perspective can actually lead to improved mental and physical health. The idea that shedding old burdens could unlock a new level of happiness resonated deeply with me. I vividly remember a particular instance that marked the beginning of my transformation. Not long ago, during a family dinner that had turned into a tense debate over trivial matters, I found myself overwhelmed by a sense of futility. There were heated arguments about topics that, in hindsight, were nothing but echoes of past insecurities. As voices rose and resentments flared, I sat quietly, absorbing the scene with a heavy heart. That night, lying awake in bed, I realized that I had spent years clinging to opinions, expectations, and disappointments that no longer served any purpose. It was as if I was carrying around a heavy backpack filled with memories and beliefs that only made my journey more arduous. At that moment, I asked myself, what if I could let go of these unnecessary weights? What if I could redefine what matters after 70? I began to recall the 7 things that I, over time, came to understand were no longer significant, a list that emerged not from a sudden epiphany, but from countless moments of introspection and the gradual peeling away of layers that once seemed inseparable from who I was. I started to see that many of the challenges and expectations I held dear were, in fact, remnants of a time when my vision of success was narrowly defined by external standards. Now, as I stepped into this new phase of life, those same standards began to blur, revealing a much more expansive and liberating perspective. Before I delve into the specifics of these 7 things, I want to share a bit more about my journey up to that point. I grew up in a bustling neighborhood where community and hard work were the cornerstones of existence. My parents, who had weathered wars and economic hardships, instilled in me the values of perseverance and duty. They taught me that every wrinkle was a mark of honor, every gray hair a symbol of wisdom. Yet, as I matured, I also internalized the notion that success was measured by external achievements, career milestones, financial stability, and the approval of others. For years, I chased these ideals with a fervor that left little room for self-compassion. In my professional life, I was known as a perfectionist. I would spend hours scrutinizing every detail, believing that if everything was not flawless, I had somehow failed. The pressure to excel was immense, and though it brought recognition and material rewards, it also fostered a constant undercurrent of anxiety. I carried the belief that I needed to prove myself, not just to the world, but also to the person I once was. And so I clung to routines, rituals, and self-imposed standards that gradually eroded my ability to simply be content. Then came the turning point. A few years after my 70th birthday, I encountered a gentle soul who had also grown older with grace. Over cups of chamomile tea and long walks in the park, we began to share our regrets and our longings for a life less burdened by trivial worries. My friend confessed that she had spent most of her life trying to meet everyone's expectations, and that only in her later years did she realize that many of those expectations were no longer relevant. She spoke of releasing the need to be perfect, of embracing imperfection as a natural and beautiful part of life. Her words, simple yet profound, struck a chord within me. I started to observe my own habits and thoughts. I began to notice how much energy I wasted on things like seeking constant approval, holding on to old grudges, or stressing over the minutiae of daily life that, in the grand scheme of things, carried little weight. I realized that as I grew older, my priorities had shifted. I no longer cared about the trivial battles of my youth. Instead, I craved moments of genuine connection, laughter, and serenity. The idea of letting go wasn't about giving up on life, it was about reclaiming the freedom to enjoy every precious moment without the shadow of outdated expectations. One day, while browsing through an online article on healthy aging, I came across a piece of research that profoundly affected me. The study, conducted by experts in the field of gerontology, found that seniors who actively let go of unnecessary stressors and embraced a more minimalist approach to their emotional lives experienced not only better mental health, but also improved physical outcomes. Reduced stress levels were linked to lower blood pressure, improved sleep quality, and even enhanced immune function. This scientific insight, combined with my own personal experiences, affirmed that letting go was not just a philosophical choice, it was a tangible, life-affirming strategy for well-being. I began to view my life through a new lens. Instead of focusing on what I had lost or what I had failed to achieve, I started to appreciate the small victories, a smile from a loved one, a quiet morning with a good book, the simple pleasure of a walk in nature. Each moment of contentment, no matter how small, became a testament to the power of letting go. I found that when I released the need to control every aspect of my life, a sense of peace and freedom began to take root. The pressure that had once weighed me down started to lift, and I felt lighter, more present in the moment. At family gatherings, I noticed a subtle but significant change. Instead of engaging in long-held arguments or getting caught up in debates over trivial matters, I began to listen more and speak less. I found that when I allowed myself to let go of the need to be right, the conversations became richer, more meaningful. My loved ones started to open up in ways they hadn't before, and our interactions were filled with genuine warmth and understanding. It was as if, by releasing the old burdens, I had created space for new, more authentic connections. Throughout this period of self-discovery, I kept a journal where I recorded my thoughts, doubts, and small triumphs. Each entry was a reflection of my evolving mindset, a step toward a life where only the truly important mattered. I documented the gradual process of shedding the weight of expectations and the liberating feeling of embracing imperfection. I wrote about the night I cried over memories of past regrets, and the morning after when I woke up feeling unexpectedly free, as if a great burden had finally been lifted from my shoulders. I also began to receive messages from friends and viewers who had encountered similar struggles. Their stories, filled with resilience and hope, reinforced my belief that we all have the power to let go of what no longer serves us. I realized that the process of releasing old grievances and unrealistic ideals was universal, a journey that every one of us, regardless of age, could benefit from. It wasn't just about getting older, it was about growing wiser and more attuned to the present. If you're watching this and have ever felt the weight of things that no longer matter, I invite you to reflect on your own life. Have you ever held on to expectations or regrets that have kept you from experiencing true happiness? Think about the moments when you felt truly free, when the burdens of the past seemed to dissolve in the warmth of the present. I'd love for you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about the beauty of letting go. As I sat there in my armchair, absorbing the gentle light filtering through the window, I understood that the first step in my transformation was acknowledging that many of the things I had once valued so highly were, in fact, outdated. These were the habits, the grudges, the relentless pursuit of perfection, 7 specific aspects that I realized no longer held any importance after 70. They were the invisible weights that had stifled my spirit for far too long. The journey toward a happier life, I discovered, wasn't about acquiring more, it was about shedding the unnecessary, about knowing that true contentment comes from within. In the coming chapters of my story, I will reveal what these 7 things are, why they lost their meaning as I aged, and how letting go of them opened the door to a life filled with joy, simplicity, and a newfound sense of freedom. But for now, I invite you to pause and reflect on your own journey. Have you ever recognized that some of the things you once held dear are now just burdens that prevent you from living fully? Consider this a gentle invitation to start questioning what truly matters to you. The transformation I began to experience wasn't instantaneous. There were days filled with doubt, moments when the old habits and pressures threatened to pull me back into the familiar confines of stress and regret. Yet, each time I faced these challenges, I reminded myself of the growing body of research on healthy aging and mental well-being. Studies from institutions like the Mayo Clinic and Harvard School of Public Health showed that seniors who practiced mindfulness, embraced change, and let go of unnecessary emotional baggage enjoyed not only longer lives, but also lives rich with quality and happiness. I remember a conversation with my daughter, who had often worried about how my relentless pursuit of perfection had affected our family life. One evening, as we sat together in our living room, she softly said, "Dad, I've always admired your strength, but I think you deserve to feel free too." Her words struck me deeply. It wasn't that I hadn't been strong, I had been strong all my life, but strength sometimes means knowing when to let go. That night, I made a silent promise to myself. I would no longer allow the weight of outdated expectations to hold me back. I would let go of what no longer mattered, and in doing so, create room for joy, peace, and a more fulfilling life. This journey of letting go is not a rejection of the past, but rather an embrace of a wiser, more compassionate version of ourselves. It is about understanding that the experiences and lessons of a long life are treasures, but that clinging to every regret or outdated notion can prevent us from experiencing the beauty of the present moment. It's about realizing that the truly important things, love, connection, and inner peace, are not measured by external achievements or societal standards, but by the quality of our relationships and the depth of our inner contentment. So, as I begin this new chapter of my life, I invite you to join me on a journey of introspection and liberation. Think about the things that have weighed you down over the years. Ask yourself, what if you could let go of those burdens and step into a life where happiness is defined not by external pressures, but by the quiet satisfaction of being true to yourself? Have you ever felt that the relentless pursuit of perfection was keeping you from truly enjoying the moment? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters in this conversation. In the next part of my story, I will delve into the 7 things that, after 70, I discovered no longer held any real value in my life. These are not just abstract ideas, but concrete aspects that I experienced firsthand. They are the old expectations, the stubborn attachments, the trivial worries that I eventually learned to release. I hope that by sharing these insights, you too might find the courage to let go of the burdens that weigh you down and embrace a life filled with joy, spontaneity, and peace. For now, let this be the beginning of a new mindset, a gentle reminder that as we age, our perspectives can shift dramatically. The path to true happiness is paved not with the accumulation of more, but with the shedding of what no longer serves us. In the quiet moments of reflection, as the sun sets on another day, I find solace in knowing that letting go is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. I invite you to reflect on your own life and share your thoughts below. What are the things you've found yourself clinging to that no longer matter? How have you started to let go and embrace a more fulfilling, joyful life? I look forward to hearing your stories as we continue this conversation about aging, happiness, and the freedom that comes from letting go. As I stepped further along this uncharted path of liberation, I found myself confronting the very elements that had once weighed me down. The process wasn't instantaneous. It was like peeling away layers of an old, worn-out coat. Each removed piece revealed a part of me I'd long forgotten existed. In this part of my journey, I want to share with you the 7 things that no longer matter after 70 and how letting them go has not only lightened my spirit, but also opened the door to a more joyful, meaningful existence. I remember the first realization that hit me like a gentle yet firm whisper: the need to always be right. For most of my life, I had seen my opinions as badges of honor, proof that I had learned, experienced, and mastered the world in my own way. Yet, after 70, the endless debates and stubborn insistence on proving myself began to seem trivial. The world had changed, and so had I. I discovered that insisting on always being right only fostered isolation and stress. I started to value listening over lecturing, curiosity over certainty. It was as if each conversation became an opportunity for mutual learning rather than a battleground. And you know what? When I let go of the need to always prove my correctness, I found that my relationships blossomed into richer, more honest dialogues. Next came the heavy cloak of perfectionism. For decades, I had pursued flawlessness, measuring every action against an impossibly high standard. Whether it was the way I managed my household, the perfection of my garden, or even the tidiness of my thoughts, nothing was ever good enough. But as I grew older, I realized that perfection was an illusion, a relentless pursuit that left little room for real happiness. I began to embrace imperfection, understanding that a few wrinkles or a slight misstep were not failures, but markers of a life well lived. Research shows that embracing imperfections can lead to lower stress levels and a healthier mindset. I saw this reflected in my daily life. Each imperfect moment became a reminder that beauty lies in authenticity, not in flawless execution. Then, there was the constant pursuit of approval from others, a need that once drove me to conform to expectations that were never truly my own. For many years, I had strived to earn the nods of approval from colleagues, friends, and even family members. I meticulously built my life around what I thought was expected of me. But after 70, I came to understand that seeking external validation was a trap that robbed me of my inner peace. I learned that real contentment comes from within, from the quiet confidence of knowing who you are regardless of what others think. Imagine the freedom of making choices solely based on your own desires and wisdom. I began to prioritize my own inner voice, which led to more fulfilling decisions and relationships based on genuine respect rather than obligation. If you're still with me on this journey, I'd love for you to pause for a moment and reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever found yourself chasing after approval that never truly satisfied you? Drop a 2 in the comments if you're ready to let go of that need too. Your stories and insights not only enrich this conversation, but also inspire others to break free from similar chains. The 4th truth that I had to confront was the fear of change. For years, the familiar, no matter how flawed, had been my comfort zone. I clung to routines and traditions because they provided a predictable, if sometimes stifling, sense of security. Yet, as I aged, I realized that change is not the enemy. In fact, it is the very catalyst for growth and renewal. I began to see change as an inevitable and exciting part of life's tapestry. I started taking small risks, trying new hobbies, meeting new people, even altering long-held daily routines. Every time I welcomed change, I discovered a new facet of life that was vibrant and full of promise. Embracing change turned out to be less about discarding the old and more about enriching my life with new experiences that resonated with who I had become. Another heavy burden I carried for too long was the habit of clinging to grudges. Resentments and old wounds had accumulated over the years, each one a painful reminder of past conflicts and disappointments. I realized that holding on to grudges was like keeping a fire burning in the cold, dark recesses of my heart. It warmed nothing but hurt me. Through introspection and honest conversations with those I cared about, I began the painstaking process of forgiveness. I discovered that forgiveness is not about excusing past wrongs, it's about freeing yourself from the emotional chains that prevent you from moving forward. In letting go of grudges, I found that my heart grew lighter and my relationships, even those that had once seemed irreparably damaged, began to heal. I learned that forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, a way to reclaim your power and find inner peace. Material possessions, too, began to lose their allure. In my youth, I had equated success with the accumulation of things, cars, gadgets, fancy trinkets that signified wealth and status. But as I turned 70, I realized that these objects, however desirable they once were, held no real power over my happiness. I started to see them for what they were: temporary, transient markers of a fleeting time. I began to declutter, donating items that no longer served a purpose, and found an unexpected joy in simplicity. Studies in positive psychology suggest that reducing material clutter can significantly boost mental well-being, freeing up mental space for more meaningful pursuits. As I let go of the desire to constantly acquire more, I found myself more present and appreciative of the beauty around me: the smile of a neighbor, the warmth of a shared memory, and the silent comfort of a peaceful morning. The sixth realization was about the importance of keeping up appearances. Society has long imposed a set of ideals on how one should look and behave, especially as one ages. I spent years fretting over maintaining a certain image, fearing that any deviation might invite judgment or pity. But as I stepped into the wisdom of my 70s, I recognized that these societal expectations were nothing but superficial constructs. I began to dress for comfort and self-expression rather than for the approval of others. I let my hair fall naturally, chose colors that resonated with my mood, and even allowed my skin to tell the stories of a life lived fully. By letting go of the pressure to constantly present a picture-perfect facade, I discovered a liberating authenticity. I learned that true beauty is found in the authenticity of one's spirit, not in a meticulously curated appearance. The final liberating truth was a realization about the fleeting nature of many worries that had consumed me for so long. I had spent countless hours obsessing over minor details: what if I said the wrong thing? What if I made a mistake? What if I wasn't enough? But as I embraced the wisdom that comes with age, I understood that most of these worries were transient and ultimately insignificant. I began to see life as a series of moments, each one a unique, unrepeatable gift. With each passing day, I focused more on living in the moment rather than being haunted by what-ifs and should-have-beens. I cultivated mindfulness practices that allowed me to center myself in the present, where life was not weighed down by regrets or anxieties, but uplifted by the beauty of now. In sharing these 7 revelations with you: letting go of the need to be right, embracing imperfection over perfection, seeking inner validation rather than external approval, welcoming change instead of fearing it, releasing old grudges, discarding the obsession with material possessions, and shedding the pressure of keeping up appearances, I found that each step made my life lighter, more vibrant, and full of possibility. The transformation was not dramatic in a single leap. It was a gradual, almost imperceptible shift that, over time, reshaped the contours of my existence. I recall one particularly vivid day that encapsulated this transformation. I was at a community center, attending a workshop on mindfulness and creative expression. The room was filled with seniors who, like me, had once been shackled by the weight of expectations and outdated beliefs. As the facilitator invited us to share a moment of personal triumph, I hesitated at first, my mind swirling with doubts. But then I spoke of the day I finally let go of a decades-old grudge, a moment that had, for so long, cast a shadow over my heart. As I recounted the story, I saw nods of understanding and heard murmurs of gratitude. In that moment, I realized that my personal liberation was not an isolated journey, it was part of a larger, communal experience. The simple act of letting go had sparked a ripple effect, inspiring others to examine their own lives and consider what they might need to release. At that moment, I turned to the audience in the room and, with a warm smile, said, "If you're still with me, please comment too, below. I want to know you're ready to share in this journey of letting go and finding happiness." The room buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose as people began to engage, sharing brief stories of their own struggles and triumphs. That call to action was not just a momentary engagement, it was a spark that lit the way for a deeper, collective transformation. Science, too, has echoed these sentiments. Research from institutions such as the Mayo Clinic and Harvard School of Public Health has consistently shown that seniors who actively engage in letting go of stress and unnecessary emotional burdens enjoy not only better mental health, but also improved physical well-being. Lower blood pressure, improved sleep quality, and enhanced cognitive function are just some of the tangible benefits reported. These findings, coupled with my own personal experience, reinforce the truth that living a happier life after 70 is not about clinging to the past, but about embracing the freedom of the present. As I continued to practice these liberating habits, my days began to fill with simple yet profound pleasures. I spent mornings wandering in nature, allowing the rustling of leaves and the soft glow of sunrise to wash away any lingering doubts. Afternoons were dedicated to conversations with friends who had also chosen the path of letting go, exchanging ideas, laughter, and quiet moments of shared understanding. And in the evenings, as I sat by the window watching the sunset, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the newfound lightness in my heart. One of the most transformative lessons during this phase was learning that letting go was not a one-time event, but a continuous practice, a daily commitment to living authentically and without unnecessary burdens. Each time I recognized a fleeting moment of worry or an old pattern of behavior creeping back, I would gently remind myself of the 7 truths I had embraced. Over time, these reminders became a natural part of my routine, reinforcing a mindset that celebrated growth over stagnation, experience over perfection, and connection over isolation. I invite you to reflect on your own journey. What are the things that you find yourself holding on to? Old grudges, the need to be perfect, or perhaps the constant chase for approval? Consider this a gentle nudge to examine these patterns and ask yourself, what if you could let them go? I encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's build a community where we support each other in the pursuit of freedom and happiness. Your story might just be the beacon of hope that someone else needs to take that first step. By letting go of what no longer matters, I discovered that life after 70 is not about limitations, it's about possibilities. It is a time to reclaim the simple joys that once seemed so ordinary, to laugh heartily at the absurdities of life, and to truly savor every moment as a gift. I learned that the act of releasing is not a concession, but a courageous declaration, that I choose to live fully, to prioritize love, and to find beauty in the unexpected. As I look back on this part of my journey, I see a tapestry woven with moments of vulnerability, strength, and ultimately, transformation. The decision to let go was, in many ways, a return to my true self, a self that had always been there, waiting patiently beneath the weight of accumulated burdens. And with every burden I released, I reclaimed a piece of that true self, gradually unveiling a life filled with authenticity, warmth, and the quiet joy of being in the present. Thank you for accompanying me through this pivotal phase of my journey. I hope that my story, with all its ups and downs, inspires you to examine your own life and consider what might be worth letting go. After all, happiness isn't measured by how much we hold on to, but by how freely we can embrace the gifts of each new day. Remember, the journey of letting go is ongoing. It's not about erasing the past, but about choosing to live in the present with a heart that is unburdened and open to the wonders of life. So, if you're ready to let go and discover the freedom that lies in simplicity, I invite you to share your own reflections in the comments below. What is one thing you can release today that will help you live a happier, more fulfilled life? Your voice matters, and together, we can create a community of strength and renewal. In the gentle glow of a new dawn, I found myself awakening to a life that felt completely reimagined. The transformation that began with a desire to let go of unnecessary burdens had blossomed into something far greater than I ever expected. In this final chapter of my journey, I stand as a testament to the idea that true freedom comes not from clinging to the past, but from embracing the present with an open heart and an unburdened soul. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains as I rose from my bed one crisp morning, feeling a lightness in my step that I hadn't known in years. It wasn't merely a physical sensation, it was a profound inner renewal. Over time, letting go of the need to always be right, of chasing perfection, of seeking constant approval, of fearing change, of holding on to grudges, of accumulating material possessions, and of maintaining a flawless image had transformed the very fabric of my being. I could feel the difference in every fiber of my existence. My days began to fill with moments of quiet joy and sincere connection. Mornings were spent in mindful solitude, enjoying the simple pleasure of a steaming cup of coffee on my porch as I listened to birds greet the day. I would sit there, sometimes in silence and sometimes with gentle conversation with my neighbors, allowing the warmth of the sun and the cool morning breeze to remind me that every new day was a gift. These moments, so small yet so significant, had replaced the constant internal chatter that once filled my head with worry and regret. Family gatherings, once arenas of unspoken tension and subdued conflict, had transformed into genuine celebrations of togetherness. I recall one particular evening when we all sat around the dinner table, not to rehash old grievances, but to share laughter, memories, and even new dreams. My daughter, who had long been hesitant to approach me because of the heavy air of past disputes, now spoke with a tenderness and openness that warmed my heart. "Dad," she said softly, "I can see you found peace. It inspires me." In that moment, I realized that my journey was not solely about personal liberation, it had rippled outwards, healing and enriching the lives of those I cherished. At a community center where I had long volunteered, I saw similar transformations among my peers. The room, once filled with the echoes of quiet resignation, now buzzed with animated conversation, shared stories, and supportive smiles. We gathered weekly, not just to reminisce about the past, but to celebrate the present and plan for the future. Each session was a gentle reminder that letting go was a collective act, a universal experience that connected us all. When one of my friends shared how forgiving an old hurt had freed her to love again, it struck a chord deep within me. In that shared vulnerability, we found a strength that no amount of past sorrow could ever diminish. Physically, my body responded with renewed vigor to this internal shift. I discovered that the lightness of my spirit translated into tangible health benefits. I no longer woke up feeling drained or anxious. Instead, I experienced a calm energy that carried me through the day. Regular walks in the park became moments of meditation, each step a reminder of the beauty that surrounds us. The research I had once read linking reduced stress to lower blood pressure, improved sleep quality, and even a more robust immune system was no longer abstract data. It was the story of my own life, written in the steady rhythm of my heart and the gentle cadence of my breathing. One particularly transformative day remains etched in my memory. I had decided to take a spontaneous trip to a nearby lake, a destination I had avoided in the past because it stirred up memories of loss and regret. With nothing but a small bag, a journal, and the willingness to embrace whatever lay ahead, I set out on a journey that was as much about inner exploration as it was about physical travel. The lake, framed by towering pines and painted in the soft hues of twilight, became a mirror reflecting not just my image, but the person I had grown into. As I sat by the water's edge, watching the ripples gently disrupt the still surface, I felt every unnecessary weight I had carried for so long dissolve into the cool evening air. In that moment, I realized that life was not about what I had lost or what I was expected to be, but about the endless possibilities that lay in each breath, each heartbeat, each new beginning. I took out my journal and began to write a free-flowing stream of thoughts, memories, and hopes for the future. The words spilled onto the page as if they had been waiting for this very moment to be set free. It was a cathartic release, a reaffirmation that the most valuable parts of life are not measured by possessions or external accolades, but by the depth of our experiences and the authenticity of our connections. Returning home that night, I felt a surge of gratitude that was almost overwhelming. I had learned that the act of letting go was not a single event, but a lifelong practice, a constant commitment to honor my true self and to embrace each moment without the shadows of the past. Every time I released a long-held grudge or dismissed a petty concern, I made space for more joy, more love, and more possibility. I had come to see that these releases were not losses, but rather gains. Each one was a step toward reclaiming the person I was always meant to be. My personal transformation soon became evident in even the smallest details of my life. I started to explore creative pursuits that I had once set aside: painting, writing poetry, even learning to play the piano. These activities, once considered mere hobbies, became powerful expressions of my newfound freedom. They allowed me to communicate emotions and ideas that words alone could not capture. I held my first small exhibition at a local community center, where I displayed my paintings, a series of vibrant, abstract pieces that symbolized the chaos and beauty of letting go. The response was heartwarming. Strangers and friends alike expressed how my work resonated with their own struggles and aspirations for a simpler, happier life. Throughout this phase of rebirth, I maintained a practice of mindfulness and gratitude. Every evening, before going to sleep, I would sit quietly and reflect on the day's moments of joy. I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for, small blessings that, when accumulated, painted a picture of a life filled with love, laughter, and contentment. This simple ritual became a powerful reminder that happiness is not found in grand gestures or monumental achievements, but in the quiet, everyday moments that often go unnoticed. And so, as I stand at this point in my journey, I look back on the path that brought me here with a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. The 7 things I once held onto: need for being right, perfectionism, seeking approval, fear of change, grudges, material possessions, and keeping up appearances have gradually lost their grip on my soul. In their place, I have cultivated a life that is richer, more fulfilling, and beautifully unburdened. I have learned that true wisdom lies not in the accumulation of things or the defense of past beliefs, but in the willingness to let go and to live fully in the present. I often share with others that aging is not a period of decline, but a time of remarkable transformation. Each wrinkle, each gray hair is a symbol of the lessons learned, the experiences embraced, and the battles fought and won. My life after 70 is a celebration of those very triumphs: the courage to change, the strength to forgive, and the joy of simply being alive. The freedom I now feel is a testament to the power of letting go, a liberating force that opens the door to happiness in ways I had never imagined. As I continue to walk this renewed path, I encourage each of you, my friends and viewers, to reflect on your own lives. Ask yourself, what burdens are you carrying that no longer serve you? What old expectations or regrets could you release to make space for something new and wonderful? I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your stories of letting go and embracing the present are not only inspiring, they are a reminder that each of us holds the power to transform our lives at any age. Today, as I sit here with a heart full of gratitude and eyes set on the horizon, I am more alive than ever. I have learned that letting go is not a sign of weakness, but of immense strength and clarity. It is the gateway to a happier, freer, and more fulfilling life, a life where every moment is cherished and every day is a fresh beginning. So, as I close this chapter of my journey, I leave you with this thought. Life is too precious to be spent holding on to what no longer matters. Embrace your true self, celebrate your imperfections, and let the burdens of the past melt away. In doing so, you will find that the most beautiful parts of life are waiting just around the corner, ready to fill your days with warmth, love, and endless possibility. Thank you for joining me on this transformative journey. I hope my story inspires you to let go of your own unnecessary weights and to discover the boundless joy that comes from living authentically. Remember, it's never too late to start anew. Your journey to a happier life begins with a single, liberating step, one that you are capable of taking right now. Share your thoughts, your struggles, and your triumphs in the comments below. Let's create a community where every story of release and renewal shines as a beacon of hope. Together, we can all embrace the beautiful truth that life after 70 is not about holding on, but about letting go and soaring free.